On January 1st in Minnesota, several new laws took effect, and one of those laws requires landlords to keep the heat at 68 degrees from October until April. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over some of the new laws that are taking effect in the state of Minnesota. They started a couple of days ago on January 1st, and one of those laws that caught my attention was a law that says that landlords have to keep the heat at least 68 degrees for tenants from October all the way to April. So for a 6-month period, landlords have to keep that heat blaring. Okay, now I realize that most units nowadays, they have individual controls for the heat. Okay, we're not talking about there being a ton of older buildings with a single boiler where the landlord is, sitting there controlling the temperature of the entire building and every unit within it in most cases. We are going to talk about, though, that, hey, what if the tenant does have some control of the heat? How are we supposed to keep that heat at that temperature? Do we have to heat all the common areas to 68 degrees? I'm not exactly sure what exactly they're saying here when they say, it seems weird. It seems weird. This law seems almost unenforceable in a way, because how do you prove, like, if the landlord has the thermostat hit at 68, but it's only 65 in the building, does the landlord have to turn it up? Is the landlord in violation? I mean, there are so many factors involved in keeping a place warm, and I'm not thinking that most landlords are out there trying to freeze their tenants out. So what is the deal? Why did they think this law was even necessary, other than, it's a feel-good measure? And you know what happens with these feel-good measures? A lot of good landlords who are already doing everything right, they get caught up in a big mess. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So what do you think of a measure that forces landlords to keep their units heated at least 68 degrees for a 6-month period? Okay? I mean, do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this is actually going to keep things, keep tenants warm? I don't know. Remember, like I said, most tenants are in charge of their own heat and in charge of their own heating bills. So this might not provide the sort of relief or the sort of help that these politicians and these activists claim that it will. So anyway, let's get into the article. It goes over some of the other new laws as well. This article is coming from KARE11.com, and it says, new laws taking effect January 1st for renters, property owners across Minnesota. The state legislature passed a number of provisions and regulations that will impact renters and their landlords. Yeah, and let's get into it. Let's see all the new changes. I mentioned a couple of days ago on the video about the new California laws that for some reason, every single year we just see all of these new laws, hundreds of new laws, even in places like, the Midwest and the South, which are traditionally smaller government places. They still are passing hundreds of new laws, so many that you can't possibly keep track of them. And then, what happens? Landlords, property owners, and just regular citizens, they get caught up in a mess where we don't know the law and then we're getting punished for violating it. So anyway, let's get into this article. When the calendar flips to 2024 this Monday, January 1st, several new laws will take effect in Minnesota, impacting hundreds of thousands of renters and property owners. Almost 1 in 3 people in Minnesota live in rental units, including the majority of residents in the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Some of the major changes include, but are not limited to, requiring property owners to give at least 24 hours notice before entering a rental unit, mandating the right to inspection before or after a move, disclosure of additional fees in advertisements and apartment listings. Landlords who control the heat in a building must keep the temperature at least 68 degrees from October to April. Property owners must give 14 days written notice before filing evictions if rent has not been paid. So yeah, there's a couple of things in there that I want to really kind of go over. Okay, so speaking of the topic that I was talking about at first, it says landlords who control the heat in a building must keep the temperature at least 68 degrees from October to April. So if you control the heat in a building, then you must keep the temperature at least 68 degrees. Now, I don't know if they mean the temperature on the thermostat or the actual physical temperature. Like, do we have to have thermometers all throughout the building measuring, oh, no, this corner over here is only 63, but this one over here is 72. Now, I don't know. Okay, that's something that they will have to figure out and put more clarification on. But, as far as I can tell, they're talking about the heat in the building if the landlord controls it, right? So what about common areas? A lot of the times landlords will control the heat in a common area, but not the heat in an individual unit. So, this is something that they need clarification on. I'm sure that they will write that into the law. But the point that I'm trying to make is that landlords, we're people too, okay? We don't always keep track of every single new law that is being passed. And the first time we hear about it is when the city is fining us or punishing us, treating us like we're slumlords for, well, didn't you know about the heat law? I'm like, no, I didn't know about that. I had my heat set at 65. I thought that was good enough for common areas, but apparently not. Anyway, another issue that they brought up here was that property owners must give 14 days written notice before filing evictions if rent has not been paid. So basically what they're doing is they're giving non-paying tenants a longer period of time to not pay. That's the way I see it, okay? They're like, oh, no. We're trying to give tenants more time so they can catch up on the rent that they owe. No, you're giving more people a longer period of time to accumulate additional debt and for the landlord to pay their rent for them. That's garbage. That's complete garbage. I don't agree with that. And I believe a landlord should be able to file an eviction much, much sooner. Now, some of the things in here, right? I mean, I'm not saying that I would want a new law to clarify this stuff, right? But it says requiring property owners to give at least 24 hours notice before entering a rental unit, right? Now, that's a law that's pretty common in a lot of other states, including the ones where I invest, right? And, the way I see it, though, there should be some clarification in there that for emergencies, a landlord should be able to enter the unit, in a much, much shorter time frame. Okay, and it says mandating the right to inspections before or after a move. Now, the way I do things is, regardless of state law, I am giving my tenant a move in and a move out inspection so that I can go over the exact things that I see that are, wrong with the place before they move in, so I know that they didn't damage it. And when they move out, I can show them the pictures that I took and say, hey, you damaged this. That's why this is going to be coming out of your security deposit. So, I mean, that's a general practice that most landlords do right now. Smaller mom and pop landlords who maybe own one or two properties and, are renting to somebody who is a close friend or relative might not be doing that. But I'd say that the grand majority of landlords are already doing that sort of thing, and there was no need for the law to have that written in there, other than scammers. And scammers are such a small percentage of people out there trying, that there's no point of the law. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say we were already doing this stuff. 99% of us were already doing this. So you wrote a law that is not going to accomplish anything. But is that surprising? We're talking about politicians here. They want to, oh, look what all the stuff we did for you tenants, If it wasn't for us, landlords wouldn't have been doing this. Like, yeah, we were doing that a long time before you ever made it a law. But anyway, Homeline, a tenants advocacy group, said the new laws passed by the state legislature represent the most substantial change in Minnesota tenant landlord law in a single session of the legislature in the 165 years history of the state. This is definitely giving tenants more certainty on some things, like the privacy issue, said Mike Vra, who operates Homeline's tenant hotline as the managing attorney. I think if you had polled all the landlords in Minnesota before this law was passed, they would have said the rule was already 24 hours because a lot of them already went by that. But there were a handful of landlords that didn't. This gives everyone some clarity on what's fair. That's even the tenant advocate said that most landlords were already giving that notice. They were already doing that. It didn't require a law, a state law. Talk about a waste. There were a handful. Those handful of landlords that weren't doing that. It's not like they were suddenly going to start. Okay. The worst landlords, the ones who are already breaking all the rules, they're going to continue to break the rules. The ones who, treated tenants like crap, they're going to continue to treat tenants like crap. It's not like all of a sudden they're going to be like, hey, you know what? Now that they passed that law, we're definitely going to start being good landlords now. No. But you know what? The good thing for tenants is that because the majority of us were already doing things right, and by the majority, 99% plus, they have nothing to worry about. But we do. We do, because if we slip up a little bit even, we get sued. We get sued. We lose thousands of dollars. We get fined by city. And that's why I hate these laws. I hate these laws because it makes the cost of doing business higher, and it drives certain people, it'll drive good landlords out. Okay, you pass too many laws, too many rules, too many regulations. People like me, small mom and pop landlords who don't have 24/7 to work on it. This isn't our full-time job, our full-time income, right? It's a part-time income for me. We don't have the time to keep track of all the new laws. And fortunately, I have professional property management in place because, I could easily slip up and not be watching the news and figure out that, oh my goodness, the law has changed. But anyway, if you're interested in seeing more about these changes that are taking place in Minnesota, I'll put a link to the description in the, link to the article in the description below.